If you were born with North Node in Sagittarius and South Node in Gemini, you're communicative, curious, good with your hands, and highly skilled. Your North Node, however, is asking you to develop deeper purpose and meaning in life, to learn to trust your knowledge and to seek wisdom and have inner wisdom that is guiding you through life. It's calling you to learn to teach and to go on adventures and to become more free in your self-expression. In this video, I discuss the gifts, the lessons, and your karmic purpose. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you like my work, please support me by leaving a like or a comment, subscribing, and pressing that notification bell. All of that draws views to my channel, helps me grow. I appreciate that. You also have the option of saying thank you and buying me a coffee. Additionally, for all of your questions, if you want to know what the year ahead has in store for you, if you have your birthday coming up and you'd like to know what's happening right now or what's ahead, you can always book a reading with me at anastasiadoesastrology.com. On my website, you can also check out the shop section for all of my creations, such as candles, oils, planners, and more. So definitely give that a look. Before we talk about the North and South Node specifically, let's talk about it in a more general sense, right? What is North Node? What is South Node? North and South Node are not existing physical things. They are points of intersection between the solar and the lunar orbit. And whenever we get a new or full moon right at those intersection points, we get eclipses. So eclipses have always been they've always carried this major emphasis and influence in astrology. So North and South Node, because they connect to eclipses, they also carry that huge weight in astrology. And so there's a couple of ways of looking at the North and South Node. I like to cover them both to give you perspective, but in general, I think I really like looking at the North and South Node as the rise and the fall of karma. They're very karmic. They connect to your past lives. They represent lessons you're learning. They represent energies you're carrying over from other lifetimes, and they're here to tell you how to find a better balance. So modern astrologers oftentimes tend to put the South Node down, and they tend to lift up the North Node, and a lot of times you might hear that South Node is something you're letting go, it's you're mastering and releasing it, versus North Node is these like blessings and your complete focus in life, right? Which is not entirely true, because, or at least that's not what traditional astrologers used to believe, right? The traditional astrologers saw South Node as the release. It's the energy of spiritual focus, right? Like South Node, even if you look at those two intersections, right, between the solar orbit and the lunar orbit, the North Node represents the point of intersection as the moon is climbing up, versus the South Node is the moon going down. So North Node, according to that energy of climbing up, has the pull towards material gains. North Node is curious, it's hungry, it's the rise of fortune, right? It's the rise, or like the strong pull. It has very material focus. It has very hungry energy. Lance Armstrong, the famous cyclist, has his Mars conjunct North Node, and so Mars, being the competitive warrior within him, conjunct the North Node, made that warrior that much hungrier. So he was willing to break rules and to go really far to win. So North Node is not just good, right? Because it can take you in the wrong direction. So looking at it as like South Node bad, North Node good is not conducive to I think a balanced understanding. And you know, I'm a Libra rising, so I'm all about balance. And South Node, because it's spiritual and it has to do with release, is also not all good, because if you're fully releasing responsibility, you can hurt people around you, right? You can step away too much. You can sort of escape. It's good to escape in meditation, I guess, but you can escape into drugs because you're so not focused or so not connected to the material realm, to your physical body. So that's where their relationship, I think, is easiest to understand, because it's not one good, one bad. It's about how do we balance that spiritual energy with the material energy. So let's talk about having your North Node in Sagittarius and South Node in Gemini. The two are always opposite one another. And in general, we tend to navigate or gravitate towards our South Node earlier in life, with North Node becoming more dominant, prominent, or kind of it becomes easier to have balance after 42. North Node officially matures, which means, you know, becomes more of a friend at 42. So you can check your North Node sign on your chart. It usually says True Node or Mean Node, as well as listen to these dates, because if you were born during one of these periods, you have your North Node in Sagittarius. So April 1955 until October 4th, 1956, October 28th, 1973 until July 9th, 1975, August 2nd, 1992, February 1st, 1994, or very recently, our teenagers, almost teenagers, between March 4th, 2011 and August 29th, 2012. And some famous people with these placements are Leonardo DiCaprio, Angelina Jolie, Miley Cyrus, Ariana Grande, Harry Styles, more recent ones, Nelson Mandela. I mean, those three were the more recent ones, but also Nelson Mandela and George Washington have these placements. So, North Node in Sagittarius is more of your desires, your goals, and your mission, or something you're trying to master in life or trying to bring into your life to have better balance. But you come into this life with the strong Gemini energy, right? Your South Node represents your gifts, your coping mechanisms, your way of dealing with a lot of things in life, right? So Gemini South Node people tend to be very communicative. They are probably multitaskers, or people who are really good at like surfing the web and gathering data, and just someone who has their mind going all the time, right? You're thinking, you're speaking, you're writing, you're researching, you're just so kind of curious to a point that maybe you're losing even the point of what you're doing half the time, right? I have my moon in Gemini, and I sometimes find myself, it's probably the case with most of us, please share if it happens to you as well, that I find myself kind of going to search one fact and forgetting why I was on here to begin with on my phone, or find myself like in a loophole where I'm looking up multiple celebrity charts while I was just watching a show, and now I went down the rabbit hole. So it's, you know, it's your strength on some level, because you're someone who can write a lot, you know a lot with this placement. A lot of times you're just familiar, you know a little bit about everything, and you can keep conversations. You're also highly adaptable to people and able to get along with others really well, which makes you a great salesperson or a great kind of customer service representative, any type of job like that, or like a really good writer. And because South Node oftentimes represents like past lifetimes or early lifetimes, maybe in the past lifetimes you were a writer, or you were somebody who collected all the data and passed it along. Maybe it was also a coping mechanism, right? Like if your life was somehow turbulent and unpredictable, you would just try to understand it by gathering information and learning, or even communicating to get your way out of trouble, right? So while these are your strengths, on the negative, you may be lacking purpose. You may be lacking meaning, not quite sure why you're gathering information, or feeling like you don't have like the final piece of the puzzle. There might be a sense of like something is missing. What is my reason for living? What is the meaning here, right? And a lot of times with this placement, you can discover something, get excited, and get all caught up in the moment and be like, okay, I'm going to become an astrologer. Okay, I'm going to become a psychologist. Okay, I'm going to become a pilot, right? And then you go towards it, but then you flip to something else. You don't stay. Your Gemini curiosity takes you further. You may have so many different skills and so many different gifts that it's like hard to figure out which one to go with. And so that's where your Sagittarius North Node comes in, because you are learning to listen to yourself. Gemini is like a busy airport or a busy news station where everybody's running and bringing more information, and you're like, okay, what about this? What about that? What about this? Speaking as a Gemini moon, so many times I get distracted on my walks and I'm like, ooh, a squirrel, ooh, something else. So I know what it's like to have these placements, right? So with your Sagittarius North Node, it's more about like learning to listen to yourself. It's, it is about finding a purpose, but more often than not, the ultimate final purpose is self-understanding, is self-development. And the way you get to it is through exploring Sagittarian topics, right? So some answers could be learning things that are more spiritual, potentially learning things that you are passionate about, or traveling where you get to meet people of other cultures, where you expanding not just by gathering data but by actually living, right? You're sort of talking to other people, you're gathering there, you kind of get to be in the moment. You may explore different beliefs, and if you meet other people, you may also like understand where they come from and what their knowledge is. So you're still doing a little bit of Gemini, right? But it becomes more, once again, focused on self-understanding, because through learning of other people, learning of other cultures, and being more submerged in it, you start to understand yourself better. Both Sagittarius and Gemini are very kind of information driven, but Gemini could take things apart. It's Mercury ruled, so it will be like, okay, what do other people think? Or, what about this? What about that? It's just always sort of like mercurial, analytical, versus Sagittarius is the truth that's underneath it all. It's a Jupiter ruled sign. It wants to gather, it wants to understand the meaning. So it wants to, it's like quality of information versus quantity of information. So Sagittarius will be very quality oriented. And like I said, so understanding what drives you, understanding what drives other people, trying to come up with your own inner philosophy, your own beliefs, and bring them into the world. You may become a teacher. You may enjoy sharing your knowledge versus constantly gathering, right? You are also called to work on your optimism, because if you have a strong mercurial mind, you can overthink and you can maybe second guess and doubt yourself, versus Sagittarius energy is positive and optimistic. So focus on your wins and then take note of them, and work on bringing that energy more into your life. Learning to, once again, sort of be free and independent in your thought, independent in your thinking, tuning out the voices, the noises of the crowd, or the voices of people in your life. And so doing that through being on your own, through going on adventures, through being in nature, right? Through exploring, through taking risks and thinking about kind of the future, right? It might be, once again, your future. It might be the future of humanity, because Sagittarius also tends to be quite idealistic. And do not be, with this placement, do not be afraid of like not knowing it yet. Because from working with clients, I often see people be like, well, I don't know it yet. What is it? I want to know this one thing. And like, it's not one thing. It's about the adventure. It's about the journey. It's about understanding yourself. Like I said, you know, self-knowledge, self-understanding, and understanding that comes from exploring, going out there, going on adventures, trying to figure out what are your beliefs, what is your identity, what are your goals, what are your ideals. So these are some of the, you know, some of the facts. Romantically, in terms of relationships, you can initially gravitate towards relationships that are highly communicative, where you both sort of chit chat a lot of times, but then eventually maybe you may start to feel like a relationship that's not offering some kind of spiritual, philosophical, adventurous side is going to become boring, right? So you need a partner who can help you grow, somebody who is maybe foreign, maybe they travel, maybe they teach, maybe they work in nature or have a job that is highly sort of like a job that keeps growing and evolving. And yeah, avoid just getting lost in the details, avoid overthinking, avoid following your monkey mind. Instead try to focus on having a life that is full of adventure, full of inquiry, full of spiritual discovery and growth, and you know, maybe like learning to teach your wisdom to other people, learning to trust that you don't have to have all the answers to still be a source of light and inspiration to other people, which is what Sagittarius North Node might feel called to, right? Once you figure out, which you may already know, your principles and your guiding kind of, and your interests and your beliefs in life, once you figure them out, you'd be happy to share them with other people. And if you've been focusing on that side too much, you know, it's always good to balance it out and take a moment to go on a web surf, to read a book, to chat about the news, and just sort of exchange information with people without it being so significant and meaningful. Always about balance, always about marrying the two without rejecting one side of yourself for the other. And this is all I have. Please share with me in the comments below how it resonated, if there is something you want to share, if you feel like this describes you, or if, like I said, if you want to add something, I would really appreciate that. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.